Welcome to the first of my deep dive speculations into science in Factorio Space Age. In the first video, I'm going to talk about what we already know and speculate about how science might actually work in Space Age. First off, let's discuss some things we already know. The number of science packs. There will definitely be 11 science packs. These were shown in Friday Facts 373, shown on the screen here. Zooming that in a little, we can see the progression of sciences across the planets. Note that military science isn't shown at all, but that's because it's not required to discover the planets, being the military science. Military science will still be in the game, but would not be required to unlock the planets. Note also that the planet images here were placeholders at the time, and these have since been updated. We also believe that there will be a 12th science pack, and that is related to the infinite post-game research, but that's obviously not shown here either. What most of the science packs are, and where they'll be. The 11 confirmed science packs are made up of, firstly, the original 7 science packs from the base game. These are Automation Science, which is the red science pack, the Logistics Science pack, which is the green one, the Military Science pack, which is the grey or black one, the Chemical Science pack, which is the blue science pack, the Production Science pack, which is purple, the Utility Science pack, which is gold or yellow, and the Space Science pack, which is white. As this diagram shows, the first 3, Automation, Logistics and Chemical, red, green and blue, are required to launch your first rocket in Space Age. This is a change from the base game, where rocket launch represents game completion. As can be seen here in an image taken from the Wikipedia, red, green, blue, purple and gold science are all required to unlock the silo and win the game. This change was confirmed for definite in Friday Facts 381, shown here, where we see rocket silo is confirmed as requiring red, green and blue science, and it does require 1,000 of each science pack. The second set are the 4 planet exclusive science packs that are part of the expansion. Only 3 are shown here. On the right we have the Metallurgical science pack, which is orange. This is tied to Vulcanus, the lava planet, and is discussed in Friday Facts 387. On the left we have the Electromagnetic science pack, which is pink. This is tied to Volgora, the lightning planet, and is discussed in Friday Facts 399. In the middle we have an unknown green science pack. This is tied to the 3rd intermediate planet, about which we have not had any details yet. We previously believed this planet to be called Bacchus, and I'll be calling it that throughout, for convenience, but we do not know the proper name. It was teased in a recent Friday Fact showing sheet music, but it was too blurred to be readable. This science pack has only been teased in Friday Facts 373. That only makes 10 science packs, and we do believe a 4th new science pack is tied to the planet shown at the bottom here, and we do not have a colour or name or anything for it. However, it seems pretty likely that there will be a science pack tied to this planet and its exclusive resource. We believe this planet to be called Aquila, and I'll be calling it that throughout. So those are the 11 confirmed, in quotes, although the last one isn't technically confirmed, science packs, but I mentioned that there were 12. I therefore believe there is also an unknown 12th science pack. I believe this 12th science pack is unlocked once you complete the victory condition tied to the end of the Space Age expansion. But we don't know what that victory condition is, or if it's tied to any one planet, though Aquila would seem most likely. I should note that people have indicated when I've been streaming, or and some of the comments on my videos, that one of the devs did indicate there was a 12th science pack, and this was either mentioned on Discord or Reddit, but I've not seen any actual evidence of that post. And of course it may be that the 11th and 12th science packs are one and the same, and this was just a point of confusion. However, assuming this science pack is real, it's a safe bet that this 12th science pack will be used exclusively for the post-victory infinite science researches, much like the white science is currently. This science pack then will become a key component for those wanting to unlock lots of infinite researches, post-game content, or to build a megabase. I believe it may even work the same way as the Space Science Pack, which is that when you win the game, it's actually about launching the rocket, and only requires the silo research. Once you have the capability to launch rockets, you can then send satellites into space and get Space Science Packs. But Space Science Packs are only required for infinite research. They're not used in any other technologies. So as I say, I feel that there should be a 12th science pack and that it has the same function. You have a science pack specifically associated with Aquila, but then you can unlock a new science pack in order to unlock the new infinite technologies. So to put it another way, space science is not actually required to launch rockets and win the game, but launching rockets is required to make space science packs via the satellite and do infinite research. I think the 12th science pack will operate in the same way. Changes to existing science pack mechanics. 1. Rocket launch. We know that rocket launch will now be available much earlier in the game. Friday Facts 381 showed us that the rocket silo now only requires blue science to unlock. They've also removed rocket control units as a requirement for rocket launch, making launching rockets much cheaper and easier. They now require blue circuits instead. As shown here, your first launch of a rocket with a satellite will unlock the Space Science Pack. This science pack is then a research requirement for the next set of sciences. This next set of sciences allow you to build space platforms, as shown here. However, where rockets are cheaper, space science packs from satellites are much more expensive, as you now only get 10 rather than 1,000. This is confirmed by this text here, where it says satellites launched into space are still used to obtain the first space science packs, but you only get 10 space science packs for a satellite. However, it's important to note that the research Space Science Pack in Space, shown at the bottom, towards the bottom here, Space Science Pack in Space, allows you to make space science on a space platform, rather than by launching satellites from the surface. While this is much more productive, it now also requires uranium, meaning we have to launch uranium into space. This is confirmed by the text here. This platform can combine crushed asteroids with imported uranium from Nauvis to produce science packs in much higher quantities. With one rocket load of enriched uranium, you can produce 1,000 science packs in space, which makes it 100+ times more efficient than sending satellites into space. This is then demonstrated in this video here, where we see filters for uranium, enriched uranium, and a assembly machine making science packs. As we can see here, a grabber arm is also grabbing asteroid chunks, which are then being processed with the science packs, along with some iron plate. 2. Not all technologies are now unlocked via research. Factorio 376 discussed the introduction of a new mechanic for unlocking research. This was called triggered technologies in the Friday Facts. The mechanic change is that the technology now requires you to do something rather than simply put science bottles into the labs. They gave a number of examples, such as oil processing and uranium processing, but two quite nice examples are given towards the end for the early game. Here they show that steam power requires you to craft 50 iron plates, and that electronics requires you to craft 10 copper plates. This picture from the Friday Facts show how these technologies would fit into the tech tree. So we see steam power and electronics at the top here do not have a requirement of science packs. Similarly, the red science itself does not have a requirement of a science pack. We also see on the bottom right here that this technology of steel pickaxe does not require, a science pack either. In other words, they should fit seamlessly into the tech tree, but act as logical barriers for you unlocking later researches. The specific example they give of this in the Friday Facts is of you being able to currently research loads and loads of oil-related technology without you ever having actually gone and been to a crude oil. That doesn't make logical sense. I therefore believe that this mechanic will also be applied to the new planets, and will be applied in particular to the early researches on those planets and the buildings that you need there. So, we will mine the local resources by hand, so tungsten on Vulcanus and scrap on Folgora for example, and once we have mined enough, that will unlock the research to build new items. In other words, this change enables Ruby to break any potential loops where you can't process a material without a new building, but the science pack to research that new building requires the material to be made. By adding this do an action to unlock mechanic, you can always break such chains. Of course, in the example I just gave, we might actually be able to achieve those targets simply by using an electric mining drill. So a better example might be the lightning conductors on Folgora. When we arrive on the planet, there are alien-built lightning conductors, shown on this image here. I believe that we'll be able to hand mine a certain number of these. The engineer is seen doing that there. However, we will need to do this for several of the lightning rods, perhaps 10 maybe, before the engineer has enough understanding to be able to build their own. Again, it's the doing something to unlock a technology approach. Interestingly, in this example, there's also a risk-reward element, and this may be a common feature for the new planets. Here, if you mine a lightning rod, it will no longer be able to protect you. As we see here, I believe they are destroyed when you mine them, and you will not be able to replace them. So the question then is, how long do you keep those around? Because without them, you and your machinery is vulnerable, but you need to mine quite a few before you can actually unlock that technology. Changes to the tech tree and unlocks. In Friday Facts 373 we get this quote: "Since the goal was to make the overall expansion experience as good as possible, we have rebalanced the tech tree. This means that with Space Age enabled, some items that are available in vanilla are unlocked later on some other planet. This specifically applies to artillery, cliff explosives, this is a masochist part of me speaking, Spidertron, the best tier of modules, and some personal equipment upgrades. This means that some technologies previously available on Nauvis will now also require the science packs that are exclusively locked to a planet. In other words, to unlock artillery, cliff explosives, etc., you will need to visit those planets and either import or export science packs to be able to research the technologies. It would also make sense if they now require materials on those planets, tungsten for example, or else why would they be locked there? The full details of the restructuring are unknown to us, and it's also unclear to what extent it's going to impact the base game experience. I can't see we'll be removing things like Spidertron from the base game, so we have to assume that the two will have different progression. By this, I mean that if you want a Spidertron in the base game, it's still a late game item that requires the late game science packs, but in Space Age, you also need science packs from one or more other planet. In some cases, I suspect this change will simply be a replacement. Rather than purple science, you need orange science, for example, and in others it will be in addition, so you need orange as well as purple. However, I imagine that the overall cost of these lifted and shifted technologies will remain roughly the same, and that the position in the tech tree will be similar. That is, Spidertron will remain a late game tech in the base game, and will also be one of the last techs you can unlock on the appropriate planet. But I think in the overall scheme of things, I think each of these moved technologies can probably be unlocked earlier, depending on how quickly and efficiently you are able to make a beeline for that particular planet. But that is a decision for you to make. You can get one of these sets of technologies early by going to this planet, but that means you can't unlock the other technologies until much later. Or, to use their example, you can have Spidertron a lot earlier by going to one planet first, let's say Bacchus, but you can't have the Tier 3 modules until much later because we know they're on Fulgora and perhaps you go there last. This approach also adds replayability and allows us to develop strategies for playing that suit our styles. Maybe, for example, I'm not good at combat, so I want the combat techs much earlier. Or maybe you want the best quality items, so you go to the planet that gives you Tier 3 modules first. The options and possibilities are up to us. New productivity researches. Artifacts 376 showed us this image. It also explained that there are new productivity researches, and this even extends to science labs, making them more productive per science beaker consumed. This gives even more options and choices for endgame infinite research. Now, as it happens, the example shown in this image is actually a non-thing, because we've subsequently been told that rocket control units, or RCUs, have actually been removed from the game. Without the need for them in rockets, their use was limited and very redundant, so they have been removed and we can't actually do this science. However, we can see the basic idea, which is that you can increase the productivity of a machine that crafts an item. Just to note that science is a kind of intangible item, and that item is produced by a lab. Note that the productivity applies to the recipe, not the machine itself. This is important because we know that each of the new manufacturing machines revealed so far, the foundry and the electromagnetic plant, have built-in productivity bonuses of 50%, extra module slots, as well as a larger footprint, which allows you to put more beacons on each machine. They are also capable of crafting some intermediates. Therefore, since the new bonus applies to the recipe, not the machine, so it's not tied to an assembly machine, because all of these bonuses stack, we can see that the per input craft for some recipes will be huge. You may remember this machine here, which was shown having an insane crafting amount. I believe that this is an important compensation for some of the other limitations we have seen, such as limited space where we can only build on certain areas, limited access to some resources, for example, scrap only gives certain items, and some planets don't have certain resources, for example, Volcanus doesn't have any uranium, as well as just the complexity of interplanetary logistics and the expense of launching rockets. There may also, of course, be performance limitations, and these buffs and changes will allow us to produce enormous volumes of material with a more limited number of machines. And of course, we can imagine this extended to science packs, and we maybe need to think in terms of a megabase with 10 machines rather than a megabase with 10,000 machines. Of course, we don't know all the recipes that will benefit, but mentioned in the Friday Facts are steel, processing units, which are blue circuits, rocket control units, and science labs. To what extent these technologies cover all the items we produce will have to be seen. The mention of steel is particularly interesting as it is relatively low in the production chain, but it is very expensive. I can't see a tech like this being available for everything because it would just be bewildering the number of technologies there would be. So perhaps it is limited to the most expensive and longest craft times. So perhaps you can't research it for iron plates, but you can for steel, as that requires multiple iron plates. Another possibility here is that some of the researches are more generic, so perhaps we get a plate production productivity research, and that covers all of iron, copper, tungsten, holmium, etc., all those crafts that produce a plate. I think it's also highly likely that at some point most of these researches become impractical and of limited benefit for all but the biggest of megabases. They'll become something to keep consuming science packs rather than really giving us a useful benefit in a reasonable time. In that way, they'll be much like the existing infinite researches. Now, let's speculate about how things might actually work. Locked researches. This one is not fully confirmed, so I put it in speculation, but I believe production of the new science packs will be tied exclusively to the planet they are unlocked on. In Friday Facts 376, it says the following: the science pack is the primary export for each planet. So, in order to prevent planets being just simple mining outposts with a rocket silo, we wanted to make sure most of the processing contributes to producing science packs. My speculation is that it goes further than that, and, for example, the metallurgic science pack can only be crafted on Volcanus. The game will therefore require you to build a factory on each planet and export the science pack to one or more other planets. This is the only way you'll be able to do those researches that require multiple science packs. To make this crystal clear, I believe that you can only make the metallurgic science pack on Volcanus, and you can only make the electromagnetic science pack on Folgora. The recipe is tied to the planet, not just the research for that recipe. I think this is confirmed by the Factoriopedia entry which we saw in Friday Facts 397. If we zoom this in, you'll notice that the green belts, the big mining drill, the foundry, sulfur production, and metallurgic science pack are all exclusive recipes, not exclusive technologies, though they are that as well. This Friday Facts 376 quote also says that they wanted to prevent the planets from becoming like outposts, where you simply mine the raw material and bring it back to your main base of processing. And this is part of how they are doing that. You can't make the science pack anywhere else but on that planet, so you have to have a proper factory there, not just a bunch of mining drills. And it applies for all science packs, so for example, the electromagnetic science pack can only be made on Folgora. However, I am guessing that you can do at least the 3 most basic science packs, the red, green and blue, anywhere, so that these can be included as part of the early planet researches. Yellow and purple science packs may represent Nauvis exclusive science packs, which could potentially give you a reason to continue maintaining a notable base on Nauvis. Space science, I suspect, is not tied to Nauvis in quite the same way, other than the possibility that only Nauvis has uranium. Or to put it another way, the Nauvis exclusive resource may be uranium. I'm not fully convinced by that. I suspect it may be available in asteroids as well. We know from Friday Facts 381 that there is this space science pack in space research, so in theory a platform could do this anywhere, but the blog does also make the statement that I previously read about requiring uranium to make science. We know from Friday Facts 387 that Volcanus certainly does not have any uranium. We've not seen any evidence of it being available on Folgora either. How many techs per planet? As noted, we know that some of the existing technologies have been moved to the new planets, and this plays into your selection of the order you go to each planet. Do you want artillery first, or do you want cliff explosives? There are over 100 technologies in the base game, excluding infinite research, and the devs have indicated that they're looking for a 100-ish hour playthrough experience for the expansion. If we assume that 50 hours is a reasonable playtime for a relatively experienced player for the base game, then perhaps we will have an upper ceiling of around double the number of technologies in the expansion. That would mean around 200 to 250 technologies as the maximum limit. If we have 4 new planets, and some of the old techs do move from Nauvis to these new planets, then we could perhaps see something like this. Nauvis, 80 technologies. Volcanus, 30 technologies. Folgora, 30 technologies. Bacchus, 30 technologies. Aquilo, 40 technologies. My speculation here is that with this being the endgame planet, it may have more techs associated with it. So there might be 30 that are similar to the intermediate planet technologies, and then 10 that represent the victory condition sciences. These last 10 may actually be do anywhere sciences. I then wonder if there are maybe 5 technologies that are space exclusive. Space science in space we know is unlocked in space, and I suspect there may be some asteroid related ones that can only be done in space. These may be more focused on doing a thing rather than science packs. However, 200 to 250 technologies does seem an unlikely estimate, given that a lot of the new content is focused around building from scratch on new planets with new mechanics. So we should probably expect lower numbers of techs, perhaps something like Nauvis, 60 techs, Volcanus, Fulgora and Bacchus, 20 techs, Aquilo, 30 techs for the same reason, and Space, maybe 1 to 5 techs. This gives around 150 technologies, which is around half as many again as the base game. But we also know there will be loads more infinite technologies, perhaps as many as 10 times as the current base game, to give us lots and lots of things to play with after the victory condition is achieved. How the intermediate planets work. As noted, I think there will be a special case for the victory condition technologies, but I suspect that each planet will have a similar sort of pattern to the research so that it's familiar. As we can see on this example, we have red science pack only for a certain level, and then we introduce green science packs to the next level of technology. This will allow us to focus more on the new mechanics of the planet, the lava and the lightning for example, rather than a new and complex and weird tech tree. If I'm right, and the first technologies on each new planet are unlocked by doing things, examples perhaps being mining tungsten or scrap, or processing a certain number of pieces of the scrap, or smelting the tungsten ore, I think it's a safe bet that once you have these prerequisites, you will also get the tech for the science pack itself. We see here, for example, that red science does not require technology to unlock. It is the first science, so how could it? But it does have prerequisites. I suspect that a similar sort of pattern may apply for every planet. You have to unlock a particular machine before you can actually craft the science pack, but once you have those unlocked, you get the science pack as well. I believe the ingredients for the planet-specific science packs will be relatively simple and obvious in the sense that it will focus very much on the new material that is available on each planet. So, for Volcanus, the science pack will require tungsten in some form, perhaps tungsten plates or rods, and some tungsten carbide. The complexity will come from manufacturing those at scale, utilising the new game mechanics. So for Fulgora, you need to process the scrap to get holmium, but that requires you to use recyclers, which have a probabilistic output, and that only gets you holmium ore. You then need to process that holmium ore, and the best way to do it will probably be the electromagnetic plant, which is presumably more complex to build than assemblers. To build all of this across the planets, and perhaps for the planet-specific science packs as well, you'll also need to produce the intermediate materials locally. That is, you'll need to make iron plates, copper plates, stone bricks, etc. But we know that this is going to be different, perhaps more complex, on the new planets. So Volcanus requires you to process lava into liquid metals. These liquid metals you can then process into the appropriate intermediates. So it is certainly mechanically different to the base game, even if you are ending up with the same things. And that's why I say this is where the complexity lies. It's not in the actual science pack production, but getting it all up and running, because you'll need to use the new mechanics to make everything you need to build machines and to make the packs. I believe the majority of the technologies related to the new planets will be about the new mechanics. So whatever else you're using tungsten for, that isn't building foundries and big mining drills, will be unlocked using the science pack that's exclusive to Volcanus. Further, the early planet-specific research will only use the local planet-specific science packs, a bit like the science platform uses only the space science pack. However, I believe that at some point in this local research chain, you will need to start using other science packs, just like the science platform research eventually uses red, green and blue science. I suspect that initially it will be just these most basic science packs, red, green, blue, and it will be a real choice as to whether you start shipping the planet-specific science packs to Nauvis, requiring you to make rocket parts and rocket fuel locally, or you ship some Nauvis-made red, green, blue science packs to the new planet and research there. You would, of course, already have the rocket infrastructure on Nauvis, so sending science packs from there should be easier and quicker initially, but it's not a long-term solution. Eventually, you'll need to move the planet-specific science packs to a single location, be that Nauvis or another planet, so that you can bring them all together and do the late game and mixed pack researches. However, I suspect that this is real endgame stuff, with only a handful of final techs requiring science packs from multiple planets. And even then, it won't be all of them until the very end. So I think only the final few techs will require all 11 or 12 packs, but some may require combinations such as red, green and blue, made anywhere, yellow, Nauvis only maybe, orange, Volcanus, and perhaps pink, Fulgora, but only those. I suspect that shipping in the red, green and blue packs will therefore start as the easiest thing to do, but eventually, and especially for the infinite recipes, it will be better to transition to moving the planet-specific packs off-planet. So it's then up to you if you do the easiest thing initially, of fully local research and rebuild later, or you start with the more complex version of shipping things off of the intermediate planets and accept that it will be slower to start with. The end state then will be that each of the planets will be dedicated to producing an exclusive science pack as well as exclusive recipes, such as the superfast belts, superconductors and new machines, as well as their intermediates. After all, this is a logistics and automation game. How the end game planet works. I suspect that Aquilo, the final planet, will be a little different. I imagine it has its own planet-exclusive science pack that uses whatever the exclusive resource is there, so it will look quite similar initially. But I think that once you have unlocked the local planet tech tree, you will then have to create a new super science pack, the 12th science pack I've previously mentioned, that uses intermediates from all of the planets. So if the Volcanus science pack is made mainly from tungsten-related intermediates, tungsten plate and tungsten carbide blocks for example, and the Fulgora science pack is made from holmium products such as supercapacitors and superconductors, then the Aquilo science pack is made from the Aquilo related resource products. But my point is, I think there will then be a super science pack that's made from products from every planet, so it requires tungsten, holmium and the other two local planet resources to make. But why do I believe this? Well, the point of space science in the base game is that it is the science that lets you unlock the post-win infinite researches. Launching the rocket wins you the game, and you only need space science for the infinite technologies. It does not currently unlock anything other than buffs. And I believe this approach will continue. You need the Aquilo pack to unlock Aquilo Tech, and use it to unlock the new infinite technology science pack, which is then used for the infinite technologies. And why do I believe that it will need all of the material from all of the planets? Well, there are two reasons. Firstly, I think it represents a slightly different and more challenging logistics problem. Previously, you've had to move science packs and a few exclusive machines about. Now you've got to move intermediates as well. And the more you want to make, the more you've got to move. And do you do that with a small platform that can move quickly? Or do you do it with a really big one that can move slowly but transport a lot? Secondly, the white science in the base game uses almost everything. You need iron, copper, stone, oil and water to make it, but no uranium. You need to process all of these into all of their various intermediates, plates, bricks, plastic, all the circuits, etc., etc. And you need to fully manage all of the oil products. I suspect that a similar gameplay challenge will be presented to the player as the post-completion endgame content. There's all this stuff on all these planets, make things and bring it all together. But it's entirely up to you how much or how little you want to engage in that, because you've already won. I have speculated before that there's an exclusive resource in an unrevealed asteroid belt. I think this could tie in as well. Perhaps it is the one extra resource you need to make the final science pack. Perhaps this megastructure I keep speculating about sits at a Lagrange point in space, and you have to take the exclusive asteroid material there to put it into your machine and make the final science pack. Of course, there's the distinct possibility that you don't get another science pack and that infinite science isn't gated behind a new pack in the same way as it is in vanilla. I think that's a distinct possibility. It just feels like to me we will repeat the same formula as in the base game. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video and you might consider coming back for another one. This is actually a part of a series of videos where I'm speculating about what might be in the Space Age expansion before it's actually released. The second video in this series is linked here as well. In that video I think I'm going to go into more depth on what I think the technologies are, where I think they're unlocked, and also some sort of a wish list of things I might want. Hope you enjoy.